Hi, everybody. August 30th, the market update desk with Scott Riley, NMLS number 157524. Want to do a more in depth breakdown on the PCE readings today and a couple other things that happened the end of the week. So, when we break down the full PCE report, we're showing that both headline and core came in at market expectations of up 0.2%. Now, what is nice is the non-rounded number actually was a little bit below it. The tough thing we were going against with some headwinds for this month's reading were the replacement numbers from last year was only 0.13. So we didn't think we were going to make a ton of room, but we thought actually we'd come in at 0.1%, which we were off just a smidge. But that's right where the market was expecting. Within the report, well, we did show a couple different things. One was a little bit of a surprise. Consumer spending actually increased by 0.1. The market was expecting 0.4 up, and it was actually 0.5 up. So that was a little bit of a surprise. The consumer is still showing a lot of resiliency, even with the constriction of prices. Wages came in pretty much at market expectation. Now, another item that came out today was University of Michigan final read for the month on consumer sentiment. Actually showed just a slight uptick, both in total consumer expectation and forward projections of consumer sentiment were slightly above the mid-month reading. Now, on the inflation gauge within the UMich report was the 1 year estimate of inflation to remain 2.8%, but the 5-year projection of sentiment was for inflation to be at 3%. It kind of shows that I think the 2% gauge is a really dated objective and an arbitrary number from the majority of the Fed members. In what we just kind of call the new economy post-COVID, the realization that I think maintaining a 2% inflation rate is probably not going to be realistic, and it needs to be reset, maybe to 2.5, 2.75, somewhere in that range. Now, yesterday we got the final read on second read on final GDP for second quarter. Now that came in 0.2 higher. Market was expecting 2.8% GDP growth. Actually came in at 3% GDP growth. So, next month we'll get the final read on Q2, but it was a little bit of upward pressure on GDP growth, what does that mean when we talk about all the inflation numbers coming in expectation in GDP? The 10-year bond didn't stay below our critical level of 3.8. We're sitting at, I think it's 3.865 as we talk. So we did have some break above resistance on that. Our next main thing is going to come in the jobs report next week. That's going to be the larger influencer on next week's numbers. Now keep in mind, we also are going into a long holiday weekend, which usually makes traders more conservative and doesn't give us all the credit on data that we probably should get to the downside. It usually always skews to the upside on long holiday weekends. Watched an interesting interview on CNBC with a previous Fed president. One of the things he talked about is, he thought it was realistic for a 0.25% decrease in the next Fed meeting, but he really did focus on what is the real core reason for inflation. There's a lot of political ideologies out there on what's trying to be peddled, for lack of a better word. But what he broke down as the core reason for inflation going up as much as it did during COVID and why it's so hard to come down was the massive government spending on relief package 1, 2, 3, and 4 that came out. The first relief package was realistically very, very much needed, but when one party he gave a great example. When one of the parties came into control of the Senate in 21 from the two elections that were in Georgia that decided the control of the Senate, was relief package 2 and 3 and the PPP program. Specifically listed out why those were not needed and why they added so much to future inflation. The massive government spending has made a significant impact on inflation because it pushed so many dollars downstream into people's hands that it truly built up prices on everything because you had more dollars chasing fewer goods and services, which is pretty much the definition of what is inflation. A lot of dollars chasing few items means people are going to pay more for it. Now, it's taken us a while to get down on that inflation number. And that's one of the reasons why it's probably going to be realistic to have a futurescape idea of inflation being 2.5, 2.75, versus this, what we talk about, the arbitrary 2% number, which was never out there. There's a lot of history behind that. That goes back a long time with actually Secretary Yellen interpreting things that Chairman Greenspan was not really saying, but she interpreted a different way and has carried it forward. So we're hitting the holiday weekend. We're going to be working all weekend and on call. Holidays are always a fantastic weekend to get offers accepted because you have less competition. Less competition equals better opportunities for buyers. Give us a call. We'll help you out all weekend, 616-293-2189. Senior analyst Mr. Gibson and I hope you have a wonderful Labor Day weekend and enjoy it with your family. We're here to help you out. The Market Update Desk, Scott Riley, your original singular market news source for West Michigan. Have a great day.